life forever. A man on horseback emerged from the curve, for the mountain like a vision from another century, like something out of a fairy tale or an ancient legend. He rode a magnificent black stallion, its coat gleaming like polished obsidian. Even from a distance, Sophia could see the effortless grace with which he moved in perfect harmony with the powerful animal. This was no casual rider, no weekend tourist. This was a man for whom riding was as natural as breathing. As he drew closer, the details became clearer, disturbingly fascinating. Skin bronzed by the sun, not the artificial tan of Miami clubs, but the golden tone of someone who lived entirely outdoors beneath the open sky. Hair black as midnight, thick, slightly wavy, whipped by the wind, falling to his shoulders with a wild freedom that spoke of a man untouched by society's restraints. But it was his eyes that made Sophia's heart pound with unexpected intensity. Even from meters away, she could feel the piercing force of that gaze, eyes dark as a moonless night, guarding depths that seemed to hold ancient secrets, untold stories. The horseman pulled the reins with practiced ease and dismounted with fluid grace that spoke of years in the saddle. He was tall, well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered, carrying himself with a natural confidence free of arrogance. He wore a white linen shirt pressed by the mountain wind against his clearly muscular chest, dark leather trousers worn by countless miles, and high boots scarred by many journeys. When he smiled, something deep inside Sophia stirred, something that had slept for far too many years. "Buonasera," he said, his deep voice laced with an accent that sent a shiver across her skin. "I see you are in trouble." Sophia blinked quickly, trying to process not only his words but her body's inexplicable reaction to the sheer presence of this stranger. Her pulse raced. Her breath came shallow, warmth rushed to her cheeks despite the mountain cold. "Ah yes, flat tire," she managed in English, her voice higher, more breathless than usual. "Do you speak English?" His smile widened slowly, revealing perfect teeth against that golden skin, and Sophia felt her knees weaken. "I speak many languages," he replied in fluent English with that hypnotic accent caressing every syllable. A necessity when one lives an itinerant life. Something in the way he said itinerant made Sophia realize she was standing before someone entirely different from her carefully controlled corporate world. This man carried within him a freedom she had forgotten could exist, a wildness that called to something primitive, long repressed inside her own soul. He stepped closer with predatory grace, and she caught his intoxicating scent, a purely masculine blend of leather wood smoke and something indefinably untamed that captured his essence completely. His dark eyes assessed her situation quickly, with practiced efficiency. Then he crouched beside her expensive German car, with the casual ease of someone who had solved 1,000 similar problems on forgotten road. "Stefan," he said simply, extending a work-roughened hand toward her, when Sophia's soft fingers touched his. It was like a powerful electric current shooting up her arm straight into her core. His hand was large and strong, marked with the calluses of real labor under the open sky, yet his touch was surprisingly gentle, almost reverent. "Sophia," she breathed, trying to ignore how utterly different her own name sounded on his lips. In that mesmerizing accent, it rolled like a caress. "Sophia," he murmured, thoughtfully, and there was something almost reverent in the way he pronounced each syllable, a queen's name appropriate. She flushed hotly, feeling both more powerful and more vulnerable than she had in years beneath that unwavering gaze. Stefan set to work on the tire with efficient movements born of long practice. Sophia found herself hypnotized by the way his forearms flexed beneath the thin linen, the way his long fingers worked with such precise skill. "Are you from here?" she asked desperately, trying to mask her growing nerves and racing heart. "I am from everywhere and from nowhere," he said without looking up, his voice carrying a note of ancient sadness. "My people do not recognize borders the way you settled ones do. We follow older paths. My people." The phrase echoed through her mind with mysterious resonance. There was undeniable pride in his rich voice, a deep connection to something greater and older than anything she understood. You are. She began, hesitantly, afraid to offend, yet burning. With curiosity, Romani. Stefan finished, calmly lifting those midnight dark eyes to meet hers directly. Gypsy, as you usually call us, though the word hardly begins to capture who we are or what we represent. There was a subtle, unmistakable challenge in his steady gaze, as if he were testing her, waiting to see if she would respond with the usual prejudice and fear. Sophia felt instinctively that she stood at a crucial crossroads. Her response would define not just this unexpected meeting, but possibly the direction of her entire life. "I would like to understand who you truly are," she said with surprising sincerity. The words rising from a place deep inside she had not touched in years. Something shifted in Stefan's expression at her words. Distrust gave way to cautious curiosity, as if he too was beginning to reconsider his first impression of this obviously wealthy executive lost in his ancestral land. "And why would a successful American executive care about our culture?" he asked, quietly turning back to the stubborn tire. "Perhaps because I am beginning to realize there are things in this world far more important than spreadsheets, meetings, and quarterly profits," she answered honestly. Stefan froze, his hands completely still. On the tool. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted his gaze back to hers, and this time something entirely different flickered in those midnight depths, a kind of recognition, as if he had suddenly seen something in her he had not expected, something he had never noticed before. "The tire is fixed," Stefan announced, rising gracefully and wiping his work-roughened hands on a worn cloth he pulled from his pocket. The sun had vanished completely now, and the temperature was dropping with alarming speed. The sounds of the night, distant howls that could be wind or something far more wild and dangerous, echoed through the mountains. "Is there any hotel nearby?" she asked, trying not to let her rising anxiety show in her voice. Stefan laughed, a deep, genuinely melodic sound that somehow warmed something cold inside Sophia's chest. "Hotel up here. The nearest town is at least 2 hours away on good roads, and half of these mountain paths don't even appear on your digital maps." Real panic began to sink in with icy claws. Sophia was completely used to controlling everything in her carefully ordered world. Her schedule down to the minute, her business empire, her entire existence. The feeling of being so utterly out of her element was at once absolutely terrifying and, strangely, exhilarating in a way she could not explain. "So what do you suggest?" she asked, working hard to maintain her executive composure. Stefan studied her intently for a long moment, his dark eyes traveling across her face, as if reading secrets written in invisible ink across her very soul. "My people's camp is about 20 minutes by horse from here," he said at last, his voice carefully neutral. "You could spend the night there in safety, and in the morning, I will personally guide you back to the main road." The proposal was utterly absurd by any rational measure. Sophia Whitmore, CEO of a multinational technology corporation, spending the night in a Romani camp with a man she had literally just met. It was exactly the kind of impulsive decision she would never under any circumstances make, but maybe, just maybe, that was exactly why she should make it now. "And my car?" she asked half desperately, still searching for practical reasons to delay a decision that some deep part of her heart seemed to have already made without consulting her rational mind. "It will be perfectly safe here overnight," Stefan assured calmly. "No one travels this road after dark, and in the morning, we will return together to retrieve it." Sophia looked at her silver Audi, with Manhattan plates the symbol of her hard-won success and carefully cultivated status, then at Stefan, who represented absolutely everything she had systematically rejected in her relentless pursuit of corporate triumph: freedom instead of safety, spontaneity instead of planning, connection to something infinitely larger than the numbers in the biggest bank account. "All right," she heard herself say, surprising herself completely with her sudden courage. "I accept your offer," the smile Stefan gave her in response was like watching the sunrise over mountains, slow and warm and utterly transformative, in ways she could not begin to articulate. Then comes Sophia. "Whitmore," he said with obvious satisfaction, "let me show you how my people truly live." Stefan moved toward his magnificent stallion with effortless familiarity and extended his strong hand toward her. The horse was even more impressive up close, with intelligent dark eyes and an imposing presence that matched its confidently commanding rider. "Have you ridden before?" Stefan asked with genuine interest. "A few times when I was much younger," Sophia admitted, taking his hand and feeling once again that powerful electric shock at the simple contact of skin against skin with fluid, practiced movement. Stefan helped her mount behind him on the horse, his hands firm and secure at her waist, sending waves of unexpected warmth radiating through her entire body. As she settled behind him, her arms naturally circled his narrow waist, and Sophia could feel the impressive strength and heat of his body through the thin linen of his shirt. "Hold on tight," he said, his voice noticeably rougher than before. "The mountain path is steep and can be treacherous." When Stefan urged the stallion forward, Sophia found herself pressed closely against his broad back, feeling every subtle rise of his breath, every slight tension of his powerful muscles as he guided the animal with obvious mastery, born of years of experience. His intoxicating masculine scent surrounded her, completely blending dizzyingly with the pure mountain air, creating a sensory experience that sent her heart racing for reasons that had nothing at all to do with the horse's increasingly rapid pace. They galloped along a narrow trail that wound dramatically up the mountainside, and Sophia found herself experiencing a kind of freedom she honestly had not felt in many years, perhaps not since childhood. The cool wind whipping through her hair, the sensation of completely unrestrained movement, the unsettling closeness of this mysterious and undeniably attractive man carrying her into the unknown. All of it combined to create a euphoria she had entirely forgotten could exist. As they climbed higher up the steep slope, Sophia could see multiple points of warm light flickering invitingly in the distance below. These were not the harsh, constant glow of urban electricity, but the warm, dancing shine of real fires. Ancient, primitive, and somehow profoundly comforting. "See those lights?" Stefan shouted over his shoulder, unmistakable pride in his voice. "That is my home, our home, at least for tonight," as they drew nearer to the source of the lights. Sophia could gradually make out the silhouettes of numerous traditional tents and wagons, carefully arranged in a semicircle around a large central fire. It was exactly as if she had somehow traveled backward through time, stepping into a world that existed parallel to her modern reality, but operated under entirely different and far older rules. People emerged from the shadows as they approached, men and women of all ages, children and elders, all possessing that same indefinable quality of wildness and freedom that Stefan carried so naturally. Children came running, laughing to greet them, shouting enthusiastic welcomes in rapid Romanian that Sophia could not understand, but whose warmth and genuine joy were absolutely universal. Stefan dismounted with his characteristic fluid grace, then helped Sophia down from the horse, his strong hands lingering at her waist just a moment longer than strictly necessary. When their eyes met in the firelight, there was an unmistakable intensity that made the very air between them seem to vibrate with unspoken possibilities. An older woman approached them with obvious authority, and Sophia immediately noticed the natural dignity in her upright posture. Despite her advanced age, her grey hair was pulled back into an elaborate traditional braid, and her eyes as dark and penetrating as Stefan's own seemed to see far more than any ordinary person should be able to perceive. "Bunica," Stefan said respectfully, bowing slightly to kiss the wrinkled forehead of the old woman with obvious affection. "This is Sophia. She was in need of our hospitality tonight." The woman Bunica, which Sophia correctly assumed meant grandmother in their language, studied her with unsettling intensity for several long moments. When she finally smiled, it was like the sun breaking free from behind storm. "Cloud's welcome, child," she said, in heavily accented yet perfectly clear English. "Any soul Stefan brings to the fire of our family is automatically family to us all." There was something almost prophetic in the way she spoke those particular words, as If she somehow already knew things about Sophia's future that Sophia herself had yet to discover, the camp was far more organized and sophisticated than Sophia had ever imagined such a place could be. The colorful tents were decorated with intricate, hand-stitched patterns that must have taken months to complete, and there was an unmistakable sense of genuine community and shared purpose in absolutely everything she observed. Children ran free and safe among the adults, while men and women efficiently carried out various evening tasks. Some prepared aromatic food over smaller fires, others tended carefully to the horses. Still, others worked on elaborate traditional crafts under the flickering glow of oil lamps. "Come," Stefan said, gently placing his warm hand at the small of Sophia's back and guiding her toward the great central fire around which most of the community had gathered. "You must be hungry after your ordeal." Sophia suddenly realized she was absolutely starving, having skipped lunch, entirely in her desperate rush to leave the last grim hotel, lost as she had been in melancholy thoughts about her spectacularly failed marriage and all the life choices that had led her to this lonely mountain road. They sat together on brightly colored cushions arranged in a welcoming circle around the dancing flames. And soon Sophia found herself surrounded by faces that were genuinely smiling, openly curious. Elena, a young woman with strikingly long dark hair, brought Sophia a steaming clay bowl filled with a rich, wonderfully aromatic stew that smelled of exotic spices she could not begin to name, but that instantly made her mouth water. Traditional goulash. Stefan explained warmly, sitting close beside her with his own generous portion. "This particular recipe has been in my great-grandmother's family for 7 generations. The first carefully considered spoonful was nothing short of a revelation, an explosion of complex flavors, tender meat, mountain, fresh vegetables and spices that seemed to warm Sophia from deep within her very soul. It was home cooking in the truest, most authentic sense, prepared with obvious love and generations of accumulated tradition and wisdom." As the evening unfolded, at its own unhurried pace, Sophia found herself relaxing in ways she honestly had not experienced in many years, perhaps not since childhood. Mihai's violin began to cry a melody that seemed to rise directly from the soul of the mountain itself. The music was wild, primitive, filled with passion and melancholy that made Sophia's blood stir. Elena Bunica said with affectionate authority, "Dance for our guest, show her how we celebrate life." Elena rose gracefully, and her movements instantly became something that transcended mere dance. It was poetry in motion, a conversation between her body and the music, speaking a language older than words. Her colorful skirts whirled like petals in the wind as she danced around the fire, her bare feet striking the earth in a hypnotic rhythm that seemed to connect her directly to the primal forces of nature. There was something raw and powerfully feminine in the dance, a celebration of womanhood Sophia had forgotten existed, buried beneath years of sober suits and boardroom meetings among us. Stefan whispered in her ear, his warm breath making her shiver. Dancing is conversation without words. "I don't know how to dance like that," Sophia admitted, fascinated and intimidated by Elena's display. Stefan stood and extended his hand, his eyes shining with challenge and promise. Then the music shifted to something slower, more sensual, a rhythm that pulsed like a heartbeat, like passionate breath, like the very act of love. Stefan guided Sophia closer, to the fire. When their hands met, roughened against soft strength against delicacy, it was like completing an electric circuit. He drew her against his chest, and Sophia felt the masculine heartbeat pounding hard against her own, a primal drum dictating a rhythm her body began to follow instinctively. "Close your eyes," Stefan murmured against her ear, his voice husky with restrained desire. "Feel the music, do not think at all." Sophia closed her eyes and let go. For the first time in years, she was not controlling anything. Stefan guided her movements with gentle pressure at her waist, their bodies finding a primitive, natural rhythm older than civilization itself. The dance grew more intense, more intimate. The flames of the fire danced with them, casting shadows that merged and separated on the packed earth like eternal lovers. Stefan's hands slid across her back, tracing the line of her spine through the thin silk of her blouse. Every touch was liquid fire against her skin. Sophia opened her eyes and found Stefan watching her with an intensity that made her tremble from head to toe. "You are beginning to understand," he murmured, his hands firm at her waist as he spun her slowly. "Understand what?" she asked, breathless, lost in the nearness. Of him in the heat of his skin, that there is a wild woman hidden behind all those expensive suits. When the music ended, they remained in each other's arms for a moment that stretched beyond time. The world around them had disappeared. There were only the two of them, the crackling fire, and the weight of unsatisfied desire hanging between them like heavy incense. Later, when the camp had quieted and only glowing embers remained of the central fire, Stefan led Sophia to a nearby clearing where the full moon bathed everything in liquid silver. "Why did you help me today?" Sophia asked, sitting on a moss-covered stone. Stefan joined her close enough to be deliberate, too far to ease the growing ache within her. "My people have a saying," he said, his eyes fixed on the stars above. "The universe never sends someone to us by accident. Do you believe that?" Stefan turned toward her, and in the silver moonlight, his eyes seemed to hold all the mysteries of the cosmos. "I am beginning to asterisk. Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. "My husband. My ex-husband said I had turned to ice, that I had built walls so high no one could reach me anymore." Stefan studied her face for a long moment before answering. "And do you think it is true?" The question struck her like a dagger to the heart. "I built an empire, Stefan." Her voice broke. "But when I come home, there is no one there to share it with. No laughter, no embraces, only the echo of my own footsteps in empty halls." Stefan lifted his hand and gently touched her face, his calloused fingers tracing the delicate line of her cheek with tenderness that made Sophia's heart race wildly. "Maybe you built walls to protect yourself," he said softly. "But walls can be torn down if you find the right person to help, and if I have forgotten how to do that." Stefan leaned closer, his lips only inches from hers. "Then someone will have to teach you." The kiss that followed was soft at first, exploratory, full of question. Then it deepened, becoming urgent, carrying all the pent-up desire and loneliness of them both. When they finally pulled apart, they were breathless. Stefan woke Sophia at dawn with strong Romani coffee and the sound of his deep voice calling her name like a prayer. "There is a place I want to show you before we return to the road," he said, his eyes shining with mystery. "A sacred place for my people." They rode along even narrower trails, climbing higher until they reached a waterfall hidden among ancient rocks. Crystal water tumbled from a breathtaking height, creating a natural pool surrounded by stones covered in emerald moss. "It is absolutely magical," Sophia whispered, mesmerized by the wild beauty of the place. "My grandfather brought me here when I was a boy," Stefan said, dismounting and helping her down. "He told me these waters wash away more than dirt. They wash the wounds of the soul." The sound of the waterfall was pure music, a natural symphony echoing off the rocks, like the voices of ancient spirits. Mist rose and painted delicate rainbows in the morning light. "Would you like to try?" Stefan asked hesitantly, but there was a dangerous invitation in his eyes. "I did not bring the right clothes." "Neither did I," he answered with an enigmatic smile that made Sophia's stomach twist with anticipation. Stefan turned respectfully while she, in a burst of courage that surprised herself, removed her expensive blazer and silk blouse, leaving only delicate lingerie. The water was cold, but invigorating in a way she had not felt in years. Sophia felt as if she were washing away decades of tension, expectations, and social masks. When she finally called that he could turn, Stefan found himself facing a vision that stopped his heart. Sophia with wet hair gleaming like gold in the sun, the crystal water streaming over her skin like liquid diamonds. "You look like a water goddess," he murmured, his voice rough with desire. "And you look like someone who could teach me how to live again." Stefan entered the water slowly, his movements deliberate, charged with promise. When they were finally only inches apart, the falling water created a crystal curtain around them. Sophia. He began, but she placed a finger on his lips. Do not think, she whispered, echoing his words from the night before. Just feel. The kiss was inevitable. It began soft, exploratory, then deepened into a silent declaration of all the feelings neither had dared to speak. The cold water contrasted with the heat of their bodies pressed tightly together. Stefan lifted her, and she wrapped her legs around, his waist lost in the sensation of being fully alive for the first time in years. Later, drying in the sun on a flat stone while watching Stefan tend to his horse. Sophia felt a peace she had not known in decades. How can you live like this? She asked, without knowing where you will be tomorrow. Stefan paused his grooming and looked at her with piercing intensity. How can you live knowing exactly where you will be for the next 10 years? The question hit her like a punch to the stomach. I built security. You built a prison. Stefan corrected gently but firmly. He moved closer, sitting beside her on the warm stone. When was the last time you did something only because your heart told you to? When was the last time you felt truly alive? Sophia could not answer. Tears began to fall because the truth was terrifying. She could not remember. There is no shame in building an empire, Sophia. Stefan said softly, wiping her tears with his thumbs. But there is sadness in losing yourself along the way. I am afraid, she confessed, her voice breaking. I'm afraid that if I stop running, stop building, stop conquering, I will discover there is nothing real underneath it all. Only emptiness. Stefan took her face in his hands, forcing her to look into his eyes. Then you must find the courage to discover what really lies beneath. Because I can tell you this, the woman who danced with me last night, the woman who stepped into this freezing water this morning, that woman is more real than any corporate mask you wear. When they returned to the camp, Bonica was waiting with steaming herbal tea and eyes that seemed to see through all their secrets. Sit, child, she said to Sophia with gentle authority. There are things you need to hear. Sophia obeyed, feeling like a student. Before a wise teacher, Stefan told me your story. Bonica began stirring the tea with a carved wooden spoon. About your walls, your loneliness, your search. And what do you think? Sophia asked, genuinely curious about the perspective of this woman, who seemed to see beyond the veil of ordinary reality. I think you came to these mountains for a reason. You do not yet fully understand, Bonica said with simplicity. That cut straight to the heart of the matter. Sometimes we must lose ourselves completely in order to be found. She paused, her eyes moving between Sophia and Stefan with obvious knowing. And sometimes the universe places two souls on the same path, exactly when they need each other the most. But our lives are completely different, Sophia protested. Our worlds do not even touch. Bonica laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Foolish child, true love knows no boundaries of worlds. It creates its own world, greater and more beautiful than any that existed before. Stefan, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Bonica is right about many things, he said carefully, but there are realities we cannot ignore. Like what Sophia challenged, like the fact that you have responsibilities, people who depend on you. And I have a people to protect. There was something in his voice that made Sophia realize he was hiding something important. They reached the Audi in silence, heavy with unresolved emotions. The sexual and emotional tension was nearly unbearable. Sophia turned to him before getting into the car, knowing this might be the last moment they would ever share. Stefan, there is something I need to tell you. His expression hardened, as if bracing for a blow. What? Sophia drew a deep breath, knowing her next words might destroy any chance of a future between them. Whitmore Enterprises is developing tracking technology to locate and integrate nomadic populations, government contracts from several European countries. Stefan's face turned to stone. He recoiled as if she had slapped him. You came here to spy on my people? His voice was pure ice. No, Sophia cried desperately. I did not even know you existed until yesterday. I only learned about the project last week when the documents landed on my desk for final approval. Stefan stood motionless, but she could see rage and pain battling in his eyes. That is why I am here, She rushed on, running, trying to decide if I should cancel everything and destroy my own company in the process. And will you? His voice was dangerously low. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. Now I do not know if I can. There are shareholders, signed contracts, millions already invested. If I cancel without solid legal justification, they could sue me and take control of the company. Then you have a choice to make, Sophia Whitmore. Stefan said, turning to mount his horse. And only you can make it, Stefan. Wait, she cried, but he was already galloping back into the mountains. Sophia stood, frozen on the empty road, her heart shattered, holding the keys of her old life in one hand and the promise of a new one in the other. She got into the Audi with trembling hands. The precise German engine purred to life, a brutal contrast to the natural sound she had come to love in the past 2 days. For a moment she looked toward civilization, where meetings, contracts, and responsibilities awaited her. Her carefully constructed life utterly empty. Then she looked toward the mountains, where the campfires still flickered like earthly stars in the distance. Stefan was up there, probably telling his people about the woman who built technological prisons for people like them, the woman who had fallen in love with him in 2 days and now had to choose between love and empire. Sophia called her executive assistant through the satellite phone. Marcus, it is me. I need you to cancel all my appointments for the next, let us say 6 months. But Mom, the meeting with the European investors is tomorrow. Cancel it. And Marcus, that population tracking project, waiting for my approval, file it indefinitely. But the government contracts, find a legal way out. I do not care about the costs. Sophia hung up and looked one last time toward the mountains. Then instead of driving toward civilization, she turned the car in the opposite direction, back to the mountains, back to Stefan, back to the only real thing she had ever found in her entire life. Because some journeys begin with a flat tire on a lonely road, and others begin when you finally find the courage to break free from the life that was never truly yours. Asterisk. The silver Audi climbed slowly up the steep trail, its urban tires struggling against the uneven earth. But Sophia pressed on, determined, until the campfires appeared again through the trees. Stefan was standing by the central fire as if he had known she would return. When their eyes met across the distance, he did not smile. He only waited. Sophia stepped out of the car and walked toward him. Each step a choice, each breath a declaration. I cancelled the project, she said when they stood face to face, and I cancelled my entire life with it. Why? Stefan asked, his voice carefully controlled. Because you were right, I built a prison, and the only key to escape it. She touched his face gently, was in the hands of a Romani horseman who showed me what it means to be truly alive. Stefan finally smiled, then that transformative smile that made her heart skip beats. Welcome home, Sophia, he murmured, pulling her into his arms. Welcome to your real life. And as the fire crackled around them and the Carpathian stars blazed above Sophia, Whitmore finally understood what she had been searching for her entire life. It was not success. It was not security. It was not power. It was connection. It was freedom. It was love that knows no borders between worlds. It was home. If you believe in the power of love to transform lives and break down barriers between different worlds, if you have ever wondered what it would be like to leave everything behind for a chance at true freedom, then you are in the right place. This is just one of many epic love stories we share here at Romani Love Stories, because every heart deserves its own epic romance. Subscribe for more stories that will make your heart race and discover fascinating cultures through the power of true love. The adventure of Sophia and Stefan continues in Nomad Heart, the road of destiny, where they will face the consequences of choosing love over convenience and discover that some battles are worth any sacrifice when it comes to protecting the ones you love.